All right, morning everyone. I hope you guys are all doing well. Fortunately, I was just waking up, so apologies if my voice is a little coarse. Yeah, as you can see, I've already done my transfers as well, taking a -4, put the transfers on the left as well, and just reading actually JP's comments. Something I can definitely do for sure is to do a little bit of a score prediction. Why not? Just got some coffee with me as well, just so I can actually get through this deadline. How's everyone doing in terms of transfers and everything? That guy, how are you as well? Nice to see you guys around, obviously. Thank you guys for supporting for so long. Henry as well. Thank you for being a member for 13 months. You, that guy, JP. I remember all of you from early days in the channel, really. So thank you guys for sticking by me. And Dobber as well, even. That's fantastic. Um, Sean says, "Hi, Fran. Great to see you. Is it worth a hit to transfer Bruno out for Salah this week? If not, I intend to. You know what? I'd actually probably ask the question and say, who are you transferring out of Fernandes as well, like on top of Fernandes, right? So I like Fernandes to Salah as an independent move, but who is going to be your cash cow for the situation that allows you to go Mo Salah? Because if it's someone like Kane, then I would strongly disagree this week to do that. Good morning, Kieran. That guy says Holland, Grealish, Trent in -4. Somehow you just ended up with the same team as me, haven't you, that guy? Crypto FPL says when to play a free hit and triple captain. So interestingly, we have 2 more weeks where we can play triple captaincy and also free hit, right? 3 technically. You have game week 32, you have game week 34, and you have game week 37. So those are the weeks where I would say you have the opportunity to think about triple captaining people. 34 is the most appealing because Haaland has a double. So I would probably consider triple captaining then. And I would say I would free hit on 32, but it really depends on what your team looks like now. So if you look at my team, I've got Steele, McAllister, Matoma, that's 3 players. Then I've got Rashford, Fernandez, Shaw, that's 3 players. Grealish and Holland, another 2 players. So, and also, if you look at my keepers, both of them blank. So, I mean, effectively, I'm in a situation where I've got 9 players missing. So I've built my team so that free hit 32 actually works out for me really, really well. But for you, you have to look at your team and say, does 3 hit 32 make sense or does 3 hit 34 make sense? And if 3 hit 34 makes sense, then potentially you would be saving your triple captaincy until game week 37. What I would say though is I still prefer free hit 32 and I like triple captain 34. Getting to slam it on Holland is quite nice. So yeah, absolutely. You can send your team on Twitter. I'll probably have a look at Twitter teams in a short moment. I'll just respond to chat for now. Chloe Trickavale says Saka to Grealish. Ooh, that's a tough transfer. I probably, if you don't have any pressing issues on your team, then I would do that move because I understand you're probably doing that move so that you don't waste the free transfer. But I don't love the move independently because I think Saka might actually be a better asset than Grealish just for 3 hit 31. Now, if you included 33 as well, then of course Grealish is probably better because I don't really expect Arsenal to do that well in the Etihad. I feel like particularly in the new formation that City have debuted recently, if Ake was to sort of match up with someone like Saka, I feel like it'd be a pretty bad day for Saka, if I'm being honest, because just rewatching the um, similar situations with when Bernardo, let's say, was playing left back for a bit and then you swapped Ake back into left back, Bernardo back into right back. That situation within the Emirates felt like Arsenal didn't have any chances after that tactical swap. But Arsenal are fully capable of scoring a goal. I'm just saying the chances for Saka to do well are probably quite low. Hi, Nuclear Atoms. As far as Sanan's question in terms of Lampard said Kepa will start, why am I still benching him? I mean, I simply think that Brighton will do better than Chelsea. So if Steele doesn't play, then he's rotated. Then I get Kepa back into my team. So there's no concerns, really. And De Zerbi only really mentioned about talking about changing keepers because it seems like Steele might be ill. So I'm kind of hoping that Steele is not ill, and that also if he's actually ready to play today, that he doesn't make too many mistakes. But I'm not expecting Chelsea to actually build up too many significant chances. So I think the clean sheets. Oh, you're one of the few people who pronounce my. I try to. God, my bad. I'm tongue tied, but I do try to correctly pronounce names. Although I don't actually intentionally. I do intentionally mispronounce Erling Haaland now as well. So we'll see what happens there. As far as Sean's question, he says I have sufficient cash in the bank as my forwards are Haaland, Tony, and Watkins. Interesting. You already did Chilwell to Trent, and now we're wondering whether to. I see. Okay, yeah. You know what? I would probably do. I would probably do Bruno to Salah. Yeah, why not? Because I was actually thinking about this myself. I was looking at my team, right? Because we got the news that Rashford is back fit, or at least he should be back fit soon. So therefore, in Game Week 34, I feel like a lot of people were scared that Rashford was going to only play something like 100 minutes in Game Week 34. But now it seems like it's probably going to be closer to 160 because he'll have some time to ease in the groin injury over maybe the Sevilla game or at least Game Week 33. And then by Game Week 34, I mean, obviously there's the FA Cup game as well. Really just depends on Rashford's timeline, but it seems like he can play Game Week 34. Bruno continues to play in the DM role, even though Casemiro is technically back. And if you look at the transfer landscape, right, if Anthony Martial is somehow fit by Game Week 34, then I would be quite tempted to go out of Kane into Martial and then go Fernandes into Salah, because previously my plan was to just look at Grealish and Rashford and pick one of those two and then actually transfer them out to Salah. But now that I'm looking at it and revisiting that, especially with the context of Bruno and how well he's done in the DM role and how much Erik ten Hag seems to prefer playing him there just to control the game, I would probably go Fernandes to Salah out on 34. But for your situation, given that you can actually do it within one transfer this week, I wouldn't mind, really. I wouldn't mind. Bruno to Salah and Madison to Andreas. What do you think for a -4? I think that's a good -4, but you also need to be wary about Andreas because Game Week 34 is really, really bad for Andreas, in my opinion. I feel like that's one of those weeks where you're hoping for him to get 4 appearance points. So the question is, isn't that a week where everyone's going to play 3-5-2? Because everyone's going to bench someone like Watkins, right? So if you look at your team, you have to compare Andreas to one of the top midfielders in the game. You have to compare Andreas to McAllister, Matoma, March, Fernandes, Grealish, Salah. These are the types of players where you have to ask yourself, and also Rashford as well. So you need to ask yourself, does Andreas sort of block you from competing with the other teams that people will have in Game Week 34 that are very, very strong? Because keep in mind, some people will also be free hitting on 34, and they will have probably an even stronger midfield than most. That guy says he's gone Tony over Kane. I understand that, right? Because some people have some cash restrictions. I've been very fortunate to own Steele, so therefore I was allowed to go from Tony to Kane, but Tony to Haaland. But of course, some people have gone from Kane to Haaland instead. Start one. Sanan says, start one. Shaw, Bruno, or Botman. I'd probably start. Tough question, actually. I'd probably start Bruno if I was being honest, just because I feel like the United defense has honestly suffered a lot of injuries. There's a lot of rotation there. I'm someone who does believe in partnerships, at least, and I do think that changing the back four consistently will spell out some issues. Now, of course, Shaw could fit in left center back, so that already that sort of maybe guarantees his chance of getting bonus, but it also lowers his overall, I would say, effective value of playing versus Nottingham Forest away from home, just because you're looking at someone who isn't probably going to be crossing too many chances in when he does play left back, as an example. So that's my concern there. Now, Shaw could still be on the set pieces, so that's actually going to be one route to assists, but I'd still probably go Bruno, if I'm being honest. JP says he's looking forward to that. Start 2 out of Watkins, Isak, and Mac 10. Ooh, I'd probably start Mac 10 because I feel like some people are looking at Chelsea and looking at the statistics about how they haven't conceded too much at home, but really, I felt like the team that was playing versus Madrid was terrible, and I thought, as a Madrid fan, that we were playing horrific as well, and we were unfortunate to only come out 2-0 versus Chelsea. I thought they were shambolic. Now, that's obviously different to what the bridge will be like, but I still think that this Lampard team looks worse than, for example, the Potter team. They're not even really building chances. They're not actually keeping much of possession. They're losing the ball a lot in the midfield, and that's even with Conte playing. So I also think you saw that Lampard said that there's going to be a chance to rotate a lot of players. That's also a great chance for Brighton to really prey on Chelsea. So I would actually probably just bench. Sadly, I'd bench Isak, I think. Martinez to Ake and Rashford to Grealish. Ooh, I don't really like going out of Rashford to Grealish, but if you have, I would probably just go Martinez to Ake, honestly. Do you have someone on your bench that you can call upon, J-Wavy, that can, let's say, play instead of Rashford this week? Ben C says, hey, Fran, how are you? Would you start Estupinian or Shaw? I'd probably start Shaw, actually. I think the gamble is worth it because I'm not sure if Estupinian will actually keep a clean sheet in that situation. But I'd definitely pick a Brighton midfielder over Shaw, which is why, for example, you can see that I've played McAllister Matoma over Shaw. But when it comes to a Brighton defender, I feel like it's not that dissimilar to playing Shaw. Gakpo's a differential. I mean, he absolutely is, but I don't really like Gakpo. I think he's still quite expensive in the landscape of FPL. I still think Salah is the only midfielder that I would pick from the Liverpool team. So in terms of blocking the midfield spot, that's why I don't really like Gakpo. How do I plan on getting Salah in? Yeah, so if you look at my team, Game Week 31, I play it as it is. Game Week 32, I free hit. Game Week 33, I roll a transfer. Now, on Game Week 34, because I've rolled a transfer on Game Week 33, I will have 2 free transfers to go from Kane out to Fernandes out, probably, to Salah in. So I can go take Fernandes out of my team. I can bring Salah in. And then I can drop Kane for either someone like Martial or Vinicius. Now, if I don't want to go out of Fernandes, and for some reason Fernandes is starting to play better positions in FPL, or in football, sorry, then I would probably take Grealish and go Grealish to Salah, and then go Kane to Vinicius, and just get 4 points from Vinicius on the free hit. Not the 3 hit, sorry, but just the double game week on 34, because I'm not expecting Vinicius to do anything versus Liverpool at Anfield, and then also even at home, Fulham versus City. So I'm expecting to get 4 appearance points from Vinicius there, and just hoping that the transfer pans out because Salah's a better asset. So that could work out as well. But I'm more tempted now to, as I said, go out of Fernandes into Salah, then maybe just go Martial as well. V4 or Vandy, I guess. I have the same team as you except Trent. I have Henry. I can't afford Trent. Free transfer used, 1.7 million in the bank. Should I take any hits? I don't think you need to take any hits, because if you're not going for Trent this week, I really don't like taking hits. I also don't like taking hits for City defenders, because you could see that they could be rotated. As far as other players to go for this week, though, I feel like you're in a different situation because you don't really need a defender transfer, but I feel like Pedro Porro is a fantastic defender option to go for this week because the Bournemouth fixture is so appetizing. So that's one option. So yeah, Vinicius over Solanke, yes, just specifically for double game week 34, because the whole idea there is just to get the double appearance points, right? Pick one to start from Carol, Mia, Stupinian, Chilwell. Interesting. I'd probably go, I think Chilwell will actually start today. So I like the idea of playing Chilwell and Estupinian, I think. Actually, sorry, I would go for me, and I would go for me and Estupinian, because I still back Brighton over Chelsea. And I was, sorry, for some reason I thought that Brentford were playing Aston Villa, but I know they're playing Wolves. So I would just go me and Estupinian. Jay Wavy says, your midfield can be Mitoma, Fernandes, Saka, and March. Yeah, that's a nice midfield. Should you get Gakpo if you can't afford Salah? I wouldn't get Gakpo this week. I'd probably wait for Game Week 34 to actually think about bringing Salah in and just wait then. Because that's what I'm doing, right? I didn't feel like it was a priority this week to get a Liverpool defender. I mean, midfielder, sorry. I clearly saw it as a priority to get Trent. But that's just because I feel like Trent has a bit more appeal than someone like Gakpo. Are you and keep in mind, of course, that Luis Diaz is probably coming back to the lineup versus Leeds, so that's in some way going to affect the minutes of some of the forward players. What about Chile to Ake? It's okay. I don't love the move because I think Chilwell will start this fixture. So in my mind, Ake could also just get rested on one of the future fixtures, so that's tough. Alvarez to Jesus, Isak for -4, or start McAllister? I'd start McAllister. 100% start McAllister. I think it's a good fixture to play a Brighton midfielder. I don't really like the -4. Sell Havertz, and for who? Interesting. So I would say if you have another I guess. I'm trying to think if Martial makes sense because he was rested in a sense, but I'm not sure if he's worth the gamble. I feel like Martial also was mentioned that he might not play this weekend as well, just so that he can actually build up some fitness. Oof. Forward wise, I think is a pretty tricky situation. I'm gonna have to think about that one sec. Forwards. I'm actually gonna look at my own cheat sheet. Why not? I think Jesus is a good forward. But he doesn't double in the future, so that's tough. And if you're free hit 32ing, then I guess Jesus doesn't make sense for you. At that point, I'd probably consider if you could go into Darwin, but it's a huge punt and it does cost a lot of money. Unfortunately, Solanke has a bad fixture. Vinicius might make sense ahead of time because he's versus Everton away from home. It's not exactly a bad matchup. It's not bad, and you could save up money. But I'd probably just keep Havertz in that situation, just because, as I explained, if you want to get a double game week 34 player, you're only really looking at Darwin and Vinicius this week, and I don't really like either of them as transfers specifically for now because we might decide, for example, that Anthony Martial is worthy of that spot in the future, particularly if we transfer out one of the Man United midfielders, if you already own Fernandes or Rashford, that sort of thing. So that's an interesting thing. Are you planning to bring Salah in for Fernandes? Yes, but only on game week 34. Also, on the topic of Solanke as well, I mean, he's playing Tottenham away from home. That's not a really good matchup. Now, of course, Solanke actually has really good independent single game week fixtures on 32, 33, and 34 respectively. But I feel like the plug or the hole really that this forward will fill is to just be a double game week playing player on double game week 34. You don't really have to care about them that much unless you're going for someone like Darwin, where of course you need them to start. JP says, why do you think Madrid turn up more in the Champions League than La Liga? I actually think that we've been very unlucky in La Liga this season. If you look at the underlying statistics, Barcelona have been very fortunate to keep as many clean sheets as they have. I also think that we are a team that, because our history is so tied to the European fixtures, and a lot of the players, specifically the veteran players in the club, have an affinity towards playing in Europe. I do think there's a slight mental edge, although I can't obviously show to you guys in terms of a data point of view why that is. But if you look at the underlying statistics in terms of XG, expected goals conceded and things like that, we've actually been a little bit unfortunate this year when it comes to conceding some of the chances that we've had. This is the first season, for example, if you look at goalkeeping stats, where Courtois actually has a negative PSXG stat. So that's a good example to show that this is a bad goalkeeping season for Courtois, but also that maybe he could be unlucky, right? If you score and concede to a lot of screamers, your PSXG stat is going to go down a lot, and it's going to be negative. Whereas, for example, someone like Alisson this season in the Premier League has a PSXG stat of +10, which is like record breaking. And Henry also mentions, of course, that Carvajal's a little bit washed up, but I won't talk about that because I don't want to slander my players here. But yeah, I think that's what it is. I think Vinicius has been terrible as well. Carvajal in the Champions League, yeah. Last season, it was like, I thought he was terrible, and then suddenly he turns up in the Champions League semi-finals versus Foden. He actually kind of defends extremely well. So that was a shock to me. Sell the Chilwell to Trent -4 to me. Okay, I'll sell it to you now. So first of all, I'd say you have 8 game weeks left. You're looking at the fixtures in the future. You're already seeing that Chilwell can be rotated. Why would you want to have someone who gets rotated? First of all, and second of all, he plays for Lampard, who already is capable of, once again, reducing the overall attacking ceiling of your team, as per the stats that he actually led in Everton. The worst XG numbers for any team in the league when he was there. In terms of defensive numbers, you're now playing at a back 4, so Chilwell arguably probably has more of a defensive role than previously, although we have seen Chelsea play in a back 5 system with Lampard. The issue, of course, is I feel like Lampard is still unable to get any of the attack working and gelling together, and Chilwell seemingly was the best attacker, ironically, in the Potter system. But under Lampard's system, I feel like he's not getting the same sort of touches offensively. And as I said, because Lampard is only seeing out this tenure and probably prioritizing also Chilwell as one of the top assets, you could, of course, have Chilwell play versus Brighton, but this Brighton fixture is already terrible. Whereas with Trent, you have a larger attacking ceiling, probably also a similar bad game in terms of Liverpool's ability to keep clean sheets versus Leeds. And so the clean sheet odds for both Chelsea and Liverpool are very, very bad this week. However, I would say Trent just has a better attacking ceiling going forwards, regardless of whether he plays in the midfield position or the right back position. And Liverpool actually have a lot of home games after this, whereas with Chelsea, I really don't think, regardless of whether they're playing home and away, that they're going to have a high attacking ceiling. And so therefore, Chilwell's just not going to play a huge part in that. And if you're keeping Kepa on the team, it seems like he's actually staying. So there's less of a reason to keep double Chelsea defense in your team. So that's my reasoning for going for a Trent for a -4. And the -4 is not going to pay itself out in 31. But the idea, of course, is that you're keeping Trent till the rest of the season and that he pays out until the end. So let's see. Tron's for me YouTube. This is my starting XI: Kepa, Kanji, Trent, Alexander-Arnold, me plus Trippier, Martinelli plus Saka, Mitoma, Haaland, Nunez, Tony. It's a very good team. Interesting bench. Did you not have any plans to transfer Maddison out this week? I guess you're just keeping Maddison because Maddison has really good fixtures after this. Does anyone in La Liga rate Felix? I know he's overrated and overplays. I mean, Felix had actually terrible numbers in La Liga. You'd probably have to find someone who was watching Benfica play to actually rate him, particularly when he was doing really well with Benfica in, was it the champion? I think in the Europa League, right? He was playing in the Europa League. I remember back then, players like Luka Jovic were getting hat tricks in the Europa League. Players like João Felix were getting hat tricks as well in the Europa League. I feel like Felix is not a very good finisher of the ball. And the issue with Chelsea right now is you have many people who are very good in terms of things like, 1-2 hold-up play, trying to actually build up for what should be a striker in the system. But there actually is no striker in the system. If you watch, for example, Portugal, you're now seeing that Felix is now integrated within the team, but he's not, the finisher. He's not a striker. He's more of a center-forward archetype. And he's not, of course, he doesn't have the physical attributes, I'd say, to play on the wing. So you do have to sort of play a system where he's almost like a 10/center-forward, and that's the issue. G-Man's hairline. No Grealish for me this week. Should I be scared? Guys, honestly, Grealish, I mean, let's have a look at this, man. Look, I went for Grealish, but that's because Maddison was giving me an aneurysm. But okay, Grealish has had 2 12-point games, but if you look at the rest of the season, pretty stinky stuff, if we're being honest. Pretty stinky stuff. I don't think Grealish is that interesting of an asset. It only appealed to me because Grealish is so much better than Maddison as an asset, at least as present things stand. So that's why Grealish is in my team. I'm not. For example, if you have an Arsenal midfielder ahead of Grealish, I probably wouldn't worry too much, particularly not this week. I'd worry about when Arsenal play at the Etihad, what that means for keeping Grealish in your team. But I would not be worried about missing out on Grealish this week. I don't think he's that great of an asset, if we're being honest. Also, I'd appreciate if you guys could like and subscribe as well. Thank you guys as well for staying over the stream. Next game week, you will do those transfers. Oh, so you're not free hitting on 32, huh? You don't have your free hit. Yeah, that makes sense. Sorry, I actually read the last message first rather. Is to bring in Salah plus 7.0 striker for Haaland March. Interesting, yeah, that makes sense. We'll wildcard Gameweek 30. Yeah, I mean, if you're dead ending, then it makes sense, the sort of team that you have. Tony or Watkins or McAllister's to start. I'd probably go McAllister. And are you only picking one of them, Shane? Is that the situation? And Henry, yeah, I'm not going to talk about Luka Jovic anymore. Don't worry. Tony out, Haaland in for a -4. Yeah, I mean, that's a great transfer. It's a great transfer. Because, I mean, fine, Tony has a good fixture versus Wolves, but still Haaland at home versus Leicester. I mean, couldn't ask for anything better. Raya to Ederson. I would go Raya to Ederson. Yeah, Chilwell to Trent or Ake. The reason why I like Raya to Ederson more is because if you're a Raya owner, you still need to think about in the future securing a keeper who gets a double game week in 32. And I would say Trent has a worse fixture this week on 31, right? Because Trent can be a future transfer for you. But Ederson is probably a better transfer this week because Leicester at home is probably still a better fixture from a clean sheet point of view compared to, let's say, Trent versus Leeds. Now, of course, Trent has the attacking edge, but it's not like Chilwell is a terrible asset. Whereas I think with Raya, there's a lot more upside to go Ederson because ultimately you have a great starting fixture and a starting point in 31, and then also in 30, 32, you're free hitting, and then on 34 you have the best double game week keeper, right, in Ederson. So I like that. Did we get more news on Kepa rotation? So actually, Sam underscore C345 on Twitter confirmed last night that Kepa was going to play. I think it's not 100% confirmed, but Lampard almost explicitly mentioned that Kepa would continue to be the starting #1 keeper. That was the quote that kind of came out. That sort of let us know that was going to happen. I wouldn't be worried about Kepa rotation. So that's kind of why, as you can see with my team, I've gone for Steele first. And if Steele is sick, then I can just have Kepa playing. Still rates. So who's MS? Trent. I'm going to have a look at Twitter as well, just to see if there's been any teams sent over to me. So Samartha sent the team. He's got 1 free transfer, 1.2 million, and a free hit chip for next game week. He's actually got a good team. He's got Stones. I'll probably go Madison out. Yeah, I would just go Madison, Grealish, and call it a day there. Top 4 prediction. I mean, let's have a look at the table. I don't think United will bottle it, if I'm being honest. They just have too good of a fixture run. So keep in mind as well that they kind of have a game in hand versus teams like Tottenham. I think the top 4 is going to be exactly as it looks. I think it's going to be Newcastle United and obviously Arsenal and City. There's too much of a points gap. And Liverpool, I mean, look at the amount of points that they've dropped lately. I know they have a lot of home games, but those home games will probably only catch them up towards United in terms of where they stand with points. And then United actually has decent fixtures going forward, so I'm not worried about that. I mean, best goalkeeper for the rest of the season. I think independently I would say Ederson. But I actually think that if you can go for Steele plus someone like Pickford, I think that's the best pairing to the end of the season. Because I like Pickford's fixture for game week 32. And I'm assuming that Steele will play for the rest of the season. So you should probably save enough money from Steele and Pickford over, let's say, Ederson plus some other keeper. Probably it's going to be Ederson, Iverson, right? Because if you go for Ederson, you don't want to have Steele as your second keeper. You want to have a Brighton defender instead, or even go triple Brighton mid. So assuming that you go Ederson, you probably have to go Ederson, Iverson. And I think I prefer Steele and Pickford just because it saves you money. So I hope that answers your question. Chilwell to Trent, as I'm not free hitting on 32. Yeah, I mean, that's a great move. Even better if you don't free hit on 32. I thought it was a good move, even though I'm free hitting on 32. I just really don't like Chilwell going forwards. I know Chilwell has good fixtures on 35, 36, but that's way too far out for me. I'm looking for a starting player, ultimately. Because Shaw, as well, has game week 33. It's a bad fixture for him. And I needed someone who actually had a good fixture on game week 33, which Trent matches up to. Steele or Iverson as a backup goalkeeper. I mean, it really depends on whether you have Ederson. Because I don't think Steele should be a backup goalkeeper. I'm looking at Steele as probably my starting goalkeeper going forwards. So you need to kind of take that into account. Because remember, if you look at Steele as your backup goalkeeper, you're taking out a Brighton player from your starting team. Start Shaw and hope he starts, or start Henry. I'd start Shaw. I'd probably start Shaw. I think it's because Henry doesn't have that much attacking upside. I know he drew a pen, recently, but come on. Best under 7.0 million striker for next game week. Ings or Slanker. Interesting. So you're actually like starting from a trajectory of going for game week 32, because I guess you don't have a free hit. But aren't you wildcarding on 33? Trons. So are you looking for a dead ending striker? You're just purely looking for game week 32, right? Is that kind of what the question is? Let me know so then I can answer your question better. Raya to Ederson blocks Chilwell to Trent because I need to fit in Salah as well. Oh, okay, I see what you mean. Yeah, I'd probably go Chilwell to Trent then, because look, it really depends, because I think you need to ask yourself, is Ederson better than Trent? I think that's a simple question. Do you back the Man City clean sheets? Yeah. All right, thanks for answering. What do you think about game week 32 forward points? I think it's I wanted to go Jesus, but he's too expensive, isn't he? You know, it might be Solanke. It might be Solanke. I think it's Solanke or Isak, I think. Leslie says hi. Yeah, hope you're doing well. Shimley says 4.6 million in the bank, best replacement for Lissandro already. I mean, I would go for Trent, right? Go for Trent. Chilwell to Diaz / Ake. I would go for Ake so you can triple up on. Oh, you're going. Okay, fine. Sorry. I would go for Ake just to save some money. So you can triple up on City from now, and then after free at 32, you can do Kepa to steal, and then triple up on Brighton. Yeah, those transfers make sense to me. Do you think Liverpool will keep a clean sheet this week? I'd give themselves a 35% chance of getting a clean sheet. I don't have super high expectations for Liverpool getting a clean sheet. I just love Trent's attacking upside, and I'm as you might have seen this season, I'm a big fan of Trent, and probably towards the demise of my FPL rank. So yeah, I'm just fond of Trent on the attacking point of view, and I still feel like he has a better fixture than Chilwell. So if I was ever, and I know that Trent will find himself towards my team on Gameweek 34, so why not just put Trent in my team earlier, if that makes sense? I can probably recover the lost value of, let's say, like Chilwell to Trent as a -4 over the next few weeks. I would definitely recover it, hopefully, by Game Week 34, because Chilwell's playing Arsenal then away from home, or probably at home, actually, but still a terrible fixture. So that's the idea. I feel like whenever you take a hit, you need to think about how realistic it is for that hit to recover, not just within the same week, but because that's usually not possible. I mean, -4 is a big hit to take. So you need to think about over game weeks 32, 33, 34, so on and so forth, whether the hit will recover. And I do think Trent versus Chilwell will recover. Is this my best FPL season? No, it's not. At least not yet. I mean, I've played it. We can have a look at my season now. I think my worst transfer this season was Game Week 13. Let's have a look at it together. This was the worst transfer of my season. I don't know why I did it. I think I was staying up late at night and I was craving some silly transfers. So I went for Darwin -4 and Foden -4 in a week where I actually had, the triple premium structure of Kane, Salah, and Haaland. And Kane in this week actually, I believe, got something like 13, 15 points. And my prospective transfer, if you actually watch my Game Week 13 team selection video, I had two options. I said one safe option was to go for Ben White free transfer on Game Week 13. And Ben White got a clean sheet this week, if I remind you. And Kane also hauled, whereas Darwin got injured and Foden got benched. So you can see how bad this week was, because I dropped... In Game Week 13, I dropped from 38k to 165k, and it continued to actually kill my team because after this week, Foden continued to be benched, and of course, Kane continued to do exceedingly well. And then I only clawed my way back up and was stuck in the 100k territory until the last 2 weeks, really, where I've kind of risen back towards the 100k. So yeah, it's been a terrible season. After Game Week 13, I wasn't able to fully recover to that. And I would say my Game Week 17 wildcard wasn't particularly good in terms of coming back after the World Cup. It took a long time to do well. But let's less whining about my failures this season. We'll just keep it back towards my team this week. Well, that's my team last week. Yeah. All right. Start Shaw or Henry. I would... Ooh, okay, you already have Ryan goal. I'd start Shaw 100%. Who do you think is the best captaincy option in Game Week 33? I think it's actually Salah. Nomi, you said, is there any options for a Chilwell replacement? So I would say Chilwell replacement. I'd say if you have money, Trent. If you don't have... If you really want a City defender for some reason, I would go Ake. And if you really don't have any money whatsoever, then I would just go for Pedro Porro. Pedro Porro, I think, is a really good transfer this week. You're stuck in 800k to 1.1 million. Look, I mean, I think FPL is just about improving your learning experience, because I feel like the start of the season, it's a lot easier for people who don't play FPL often to do well. And then the second half of the season, which is where I've struggled in the past because I would say I don't have as much planning expertise as some other managers. You need to look at Ben Crellin, the fixture probabilities, try to if let's say in your head, right, you have let's if we just didn't play with a model, because a lot of people do expected points and etc etc, and I know some people don't like playing with models, but if you had a mental model in your head of points every week, so let's say I think Grealish versus Leicester is going to be a 7-point fixture for Grealish. I think he's going to do well, right? I think he gets an assist here, he gets a clean sheet, maybe 1 bonus point. Grealish is going to get 7 points. You need to think about in the second half of the season what happens when there are double game weeks. So because Ben Crellin continues to change the fixture probabilities for players, every move you make each week needs to take into account the probabilities of a fixture in the future. So let's say if we knew that Newcastle versus Brighton was going to happen in Game Week 36, but we're not 100% sure about it, if I was to think about Newcastle players and how well they would do in that fixture, probably let's say Isak on Game Week 36 in a double game week is going to get 15 points. But I'd still have to reduce the amount of points that he gets with the probability that I think will actually be assigned to how likely that double game week is going to happen, right? So a lot of the back end of the season is looking about fixture probabilities and then picking the teams that you like that have double game weeks or that should have double game weeks. If we go back to, let's say, the FA Cup situation, do you guys remember when Leicester lost to, I think Leicester lost to, was it Sheffield United? And another team lost that I can't remember. Tottenham lost. Sorry, Tottenham lost to Sheffield United and Leicester lost to, what was the team that they lost to? Can't remember right now. The team that just lost to Brighton as well in the FA Cup. It's totally eluded me. I remember. Why can't I remember? Grimsby Town. Sorry. So that was yeah, exactly. So that the probability of that happening was 0.01%, which is why a lot of people immediately thought about wildcarding after that, because that completely radically changed our conception of the FPL fixtures. So that's why you need to think about things like that too. As far as taking out Saka and bringing Grealish, good. I don't like taking out Saka for Grealish this week. I don't think it makes sense. Yeah. Would you, Ziad says, would you bench Odegaard, West Ham, March or Matoma, Chelsea? Tough question. I'd probably bench March. I think I'd probably bench March. Martinez replacement, Ederson, good option, please. Yeah, of course. I think Ederson is a fantastic option. 100%. You have triple captain and bench boost, might bench boost in 34. Yeah, I think Tron. So then just save your triple captaincy for 37 or 32. I had to do Saka to Grealish or else burn the transfer. Oh, you had to do it. Okay, fine. I mean, it's a tough situation, but I get it. If you're free hitting on 32, I still don't like the transfer though. I'm really sorry to say that. Isak or Ollie Watkins in. If you're bringing one of the two players this week, I'd actually think about going for Isak, because for me, when I was looking at the Aston Villa fixtures for the rest of the season, I feel like Watkins actually has worse fixtures, but that's the issue, right? I feel like Watkins has worse fixtures. Isak, even though he has less minutes than Watkins, is also on penalties whenever he starts. Although that's an interesting thing to look at, because if Callum Wilson and Isak play at the same time, who takes penalties? It's probably still Callum Wilson. As far as Chad Scott's question about play one as Stupinian, Nico Williams or Castagna, I'd play a Stupinian. I would play a Stupinian, 100%. You've got Trent and Trippier as well. You're set. Just go play a Stupinian. Z, hope you're doing well. Thank you for joining the stream today. Arya says, thoughts about Ferguson now that McAllister and March are less trustful. I mean, what makes you think that they're less trustful, though? Because isn't the issue about Ferguson that he doesn't get consistent starts? Start Kepa or Raya. I don't have any other Chelsea defenders. Ooh, I'd probably start Raya. I'd start Raya. Who best to start in goal, Pope or Martinez? Good question. I think it's Pope. I think it's Pope still. I know it's not, it might not feel good playing Watkins versus someone like Trippier and Pope, but ultimately it's a mirror matchup anyways, right? Because you've got Martinez on the other end of the thing, so I'd probably still go Pope. De Gea the best now. I mean, De Gea is nice. I wouldn't say he's the best, because I feel like now that Shaw is close to being fit again, I'd probably go back into Shaw like as the priority Man United option, because we're already lacking in defenders, right? So right now you can look at it like this. Shaw can play in your defense. You can play Ederson or Steele as your goalkeeper, and that would be a good situation. I would much rather play, for example, De Gea. Sorry, I'd much rather play someone like Steele plus Shaw or Ederson plus Shaw, because Ederson is so beautiful in the sense that you don't get rotation threats. Ederson will play these Premier League games, whereas with De Gea, yes, of course, he plays in the Premier League, but if you get a Man City defender, he might get rotated because the defender might have to be rested for the Champions League fixtures instead. Saka to Grealish does not make sense to -4. I'm sorry, I really would not do that move. I would not advise it. Please don't do it. I think West Ham away is a terrific fixture for Saka. Can't seem to get Trent in for Lissandro. Unless I take out Haaland or Kane. Oh, don't do that then. Do you think Lissandro to Ake and Saka to Grealish makes sense? I like those moves. If you really... yeah, I like those moves. I like those moves. For the rest of the season, a triple up on Brighton assets, plus Salah and Trent from Liverpool and Rashford and Shaw. Yeah, that's super ideal for Series. I think that makes sense. And Isak, of course, is a good transfer as well. Is there a I don't think there's many chances that Grealish starts today, because what is the situation with the City team, right? Foden is out. He's not in training because he has to recover from his appendicitis surgery, and then he actually needs to be eased in. He needs to go into training. Then he probably will play off the bench for a bit because he needs match fitness. So there's not much threat of Foden. Not to mention that Foden usually plays on the right. Mahrez could play on the right, but we don't see Mahrez on the left. I guess Bernardo could play on the left, but why play Bernardo on the left? I mean, he's also someone who played 90 minutes in the Champions League game, so I feel like Grealish is going to play on the left 100%, unless he's injured. March and McAllister. I'd probably go McAllister just because he's still on penalties, and I feel like that's something I still rate very highly, if I'm being honest. I'll check Twitter DMs now. Ooh, that guy. It's a nice defense you've got. Double Brighton defense, though. That guy, are you really benching Trippier? Please don't do that. You're a psychopath. Absolute psychopath. So Andy Carrot on Twitter says, one free transfer, what would you do? I'm thinking of getting rid of Chilwell for Stones. I don't think Stones is the best option, because I feel like Stones will get rotated just so that he can get rested for the Champions League games. I think I'd rather go Ake, because it feels like Ake is capable of playing more matches in a row. So that's my opinion on that. Let's see. So Malcolm, nice to see you around. Hope you're doing well. Stacy says Dunker Estupinian. I'd still go Estupinian. Start 2 of Chilwell, Havertz, or Botman. Look, I'd probably just go Chilwell and Havertz, honestly. It doesn't feel great, but I feel like Chilwell starts, so it's comparable to Botman, who doesn't have much of an attacking ceiling. And then Havertz, it seems like he's probably due for a start, so I'd probably go for Havertz as well. That's contrary to my team, of course, because as you can see, I don't have any Chelsea players, and I've gone for triple Brighton, but I wouldn't put it past Chelsea to score 1. They are pretty terrible, but I mean, Botman isn't like a high ceiling asset, so I'd probably just go with upside. Oya King. My G, good morning, Fran. Would you recommend Henry or Estupinian to borrow for a -4? And if not, who do you start with, Shaw and Trippier? Whoa, are you trying to choose between Shaw and Trippier for a start? I'd probably start Shaw over Henry, if I'm being honest. And I wouldn't do the -4. I don't think... Like, I think about going for a Brighton player on a future game week, but not for a -4. I'd think about -4ing them in if it was a double game week. That's a different situation, of course. I'd probably start Shaw and Trippier and actually just bench Henry. Dr. Malcolm says he's got Kepa, Raya, Trippier, Botman, Estupinian, Shaw, Chile. Okay, yeah. Yeah, Raya to Ederson makes sense. I think Raya would save you more money, right? Because Raya is probably 4.9 million, is he? So I think you can just go to Ederson, save yourself some money as opposed to going out of Kepa. Because it seems like Kepa will continue to start for Chelsea unless he starts to play horrifically bad. Bando says who to bench, Bruno or March? Well, that's a tough question. I'd actually probably bench March. You still have the backing of penalties for Bruno. Shaw and Trippier will start. Okay, that's good. Estupinian or Henry fighting for a place. I'd probably go Henry. I'd probably go Henry. -4 is tough, right? Because if you're going -4 to Porro, one of the issues with going for Porro is that you're saying that Tottenham are definitely going to get a clean sheet, and I wouldn't put it past Tottenham to lose the clean sheet. I like Porro as a single free transfer without the hit, but for a -4, I wouldn't say it's worthwhile. I think you can keep, like Estupinian, for example, is a fantastic player to keep. You're going to have double game weeks in the future, so you need these Brighton assets. It doesn't make sense to go into Porro. As far as Henry, like he could be a -4, but it's not really worth a -4, is it? Because I think Henry versus Wolves is a good fixture as well. At least, like, I wouldn't say it's -4 compared to Pedro Porro. Watkins or March? Well, I've actually been asked that question a couple of times, and I actually think the answer is going to be Watkins. I'd still back the penalty taker in these sorts of situations. That's my personal opinion. Kane, Tony, and Havertz on top. Need Haaland in. You have 2 free transfers. I'd go. Okay, let's get Havertz out of the team. Yeah. Okay. You've actually literally suggested the transfers that I would recommend. So when you do Havertz to Haaland, Maddison to Martinelli, how much money do you have left in the bank? Because I would only ask if you can go Maddison to Grealish. But if you can't, then that's fine. Maddison to Martinelli makes sense. I think the 2 transfers that you've suggested are fantastic. Start Estupinian. I'd start Estupinian. I think Newcastle are quite a lethal offense. I feel like Chelsea are pretty putrid offense. Even though, yeah, I mean, I know these 2 players are both playing away from home. I just think Chelsea attacking ceiling lower than Newcastle attacking ceiling. Sorry, I know Moreno is playing at home, but Estupinian is playing away. But I still back Estupinian over Moreno this week, just because Newcastle are a pretty devastating team right now. Going back to the question of, unless they're going for Havertz to Haaland, right? I still think it makes sense to start Haaland this week or Havertz. If you don't have, let's say, some sort of benching situation, I don't think Havertz is worth a -4. For example, there are not many forwards that I would actually go for. So yeah, I think Havertz still makes sense as a start for some people, unless you're going to Haaland, and that's completely fine. Botman or Chilwell, start 1. Let's see. I'd probably start Chilwell, honestly. I feel like Botman's still a lower ceiling asset. I'm assuming you have Trippier, and Watkins could very well score. So, yeah, just go Chilwell. If I want to fund Chilwell to Trent, is it better to do Bruno/Saka to Grealish, or is it not worth to do Chilwell to Trent for a -4 makes sense. I feel like if you're going out of a worse asset to Grealish. I went Maddison to Grealish, so that's why I justified the -4, because for me, Maddison to Grealish is a huge upgrade. Whereas I would say Bruno/Saka, right? Like Nottingham Forest away and West Ham away, still fantastic fixtures for Bruno and Saka. So I would say that your -4 doesn't make sense, not because of Chilwell to Trent, but because the transfer out to Grealish doesn't make sense to me. Fionki says -0.4. That's fine. Just go for Martinelli instead then. Just go for Martinelli. Dr. Malcolm says, what are the best Maddison replacements under 9 million if I own Rashford, McAllister, Matoma, and Grealish? Ooh, that's an interesting question. I'm guessing I think you need to save that spot for Salah. That's 100% certain. The question, I suppose, is, do you need to replace Maddison this week? Because my opinion is that, yeah, that Maddison spot should be Salah in the future. So I don't really like any of the other midfielders unless you're actually going for March. Would you start Henry or Shaw? I'd start Shaw. Do you think KDB starts after I actually think that KDB might be rested. I know he was tactically taken off, but personally, I think he was also just tired in that match. Like he was showing he was showing signs of visible tiredness. And I don't think there was a huge tactical adjustment because we know that Alvarez can very well play, and the tactical structure of the Man City team did not change, right? So when we're talking about tactical changes, that was more like, I don't think KDB is giving enough for me on the pitch, therefore I'm going to bring Alvarez in, as opposed to we're going to change the formation, tactical adjustment, if that makes sense. So watching the game, I felt like KDB was just tired, and if he's tired, I'd probably imagine that he gets rested versus Leicester as well, just so that he can actually, bring his A game to the second leg of the Bayern Munich match. I would start Shaw over most players. I mean, if you look at my team, though, I'm not starting Shaw over Trippier, I'm not starting him over Zinchenko, and I'm definitely not starting him over Trent. And then when it comes to McAllister, Mitoma, still not starting Shaw over them. So Shaw is actually my reluctant bench option this week, which is why he's sitting there on the bench. Take out Rashford and bring in Grealish. I don't like it because Rashford's coming back into our team soon, right? Don't you want Rashford as soon as possible? Malcolm says thoughts on doing Kane, Madison to Salah, Martial / Isak for -4. I would not jump the gun on Martial. Martial is someone that I would only consider in Gameweek 34. He's trying to build some match fitness. He might not even be involved in the Nottingham Forest match. I would not jump the gun on Martial, 100%. You didn't think about this before, but what about March to McAllister if it means I can keep Saka instead of going for Grealish? Is this because you're trying to just spend the transfer? I guess that makes sense, right? Because you're just trying to burn your transfer. Like, why not, Chloe? It's not a bad idea, actually. JP, do you think Shaw starts? Should I start him or Chilwell? Good question. Yes, I do think he starts. The interesting thing is that I was looking at a lot of predictors, right? People who are kind of quote-unquote experts that predicting Man United's lineup, and it was literally 50-50 down the line. But a lot of them still have the assumption that Shaw either starts or he doesn't play at all. So I would actually go with the opinion of assuming that Shaw starts, because I don't really think that he's going to be a late sub. So I feel like Shaw is someone that's worth starting for that sort of gamble. I can't do the suggested transfers. Oh, you couldn't do the Martinelli transfer. Could you go for a Brighton midfielder, though? Fionki. Maybe you can sidestep Trent, then. I guess you could go for a City defender, I suppose. March or Mitoma. I like Mitoma more. Start Pickford or Pope. Got Trippier. Ooh, I'd probably start Pickford, honestly. I'd probably start Pickford. Let me have a look at the clean sheet odds for you, because I feel like this is a week to start Pickford. Yeah, I would actually start Pickford. He's actually got higher clean sheet odds this week, so I'd go for Pickford. Will Rashford play in Gameweek 34? It seems like it, because Eric Ten Hag said that he could come back as soon as the next Sevilla game. So if you look at the timelines for Man United's fixtures, 100% he's going to be back for Gameweek 34. Mings, Henry, McAllister, or Shaw, which of them do I take on a bench? Ooh, good question. I'd probably bench Mings, 100%. I'd probably... Yeah, I'd bench Mings. That's it, right? Are you trying to bench anyone more than one person? For captaincy is... Oh, sorry, I actually missed the captaincy question. Let's do a quick poll here. I don't want to scare you, though, but now that Twitter polls are dead, we can actually do polls on YouTube. Gameweek. I'm going to add Salah there, just for anyone who's thinking about that. I have to be honest and say I think this is a perfect opportunity for a Haaland captaincy. It's too simple, it's too standard, but it makes too much sense. I know this is a lovely game for Kane versus Bournemouth, but you can't tell me that this isn't a good fixture for Haaland, and I have to say I would just back Haaland over Kane. The ceiling, as we've seen this season for Haaland, has been higher than Kane, and the simple reality is that the amount of chances that the Spurs team builds each game is much less than the City team. So why wouldn't you back the player who's going to get more chances? That's just my simple argument for why I would still go for Haaland. If you didn't have Haaland, then I would probably go Kane. I agree. But you have Haaland in your team, and I'd probably just back Haaland like that. If you think about it, some people, right, are also not going for... some people aren't going for Haaland because they're going for a 3-hit 34 trajectory. So they are going for Salah and Kane, and they're probably going to captain Kane this week. But I don't think Kane's effective ownership is going to be above 100. And I don't think Haaland's effective ownership is going to be above 200. So you're still going to benefit as a manager owning both. And unless you're telling me that Kane is going to absolutely destroy Haaland versus Bournemouth and Haaland versus Leicester, for example, then it doesn't make sense for me to move the captaincy to Kane. I feel like you're more than likely going to suffer. When I visualize both games, I think Haaland's going to decimate Leicester a little bit more than, let's say, Kane's going to decimate Bournemouth. But I'm happy to be wrong in hindsight. But I right now, telling you, I think I would go for Haaland captaincy. So yeah, that's my opinion on that one. Malcolm says, if I don't do Madison, Kane to Salah and Isak or the best striker for -4, isn't that worth it long term? It's not worth it long term because I feel like Yes, I'm okay. I agree with what you're saying because you're saying it's worth it long term. But can't you do the -4 in another week? Because I feel like the issue with going from Kane to Salah this week is you're literally going from a worse asset, right? I feel like Kane versus Bournemouth is better than Salah versus Leeds. So it's like, when do you want to take that -4? Because that -4 could be worth it in the long term, starting from game week 33, but it could be worth it but it's worse almost in the short term, right? There's not even a small. If you took the hit outside, if let's say you remove the hit, I think those transfers are actually making your team worse for this week because probably Madison. I'm assuming that you have someone that can come and replace Madison on the bench. So if you look at my team, for example, like Madison is probably holding the spot that Rashford does in my team. So Madison's on my bench. So the question is like someone like McAllister plus Kane versus Isak and Salah. And if you're looking at that from that point of view, I'd probably take the -4 in a different week, right? When maybe Kane is playing versus United, I'd probably do the -4 then. Does that sort of make sense? That's why I wouldn't do the transfer this week. Um, Oh yeah, Stefan, absolutely. Yeah. I hope to see all of you guys at the London FPL meet. So I will be making it towards the FPL meets, and I'd love to see you guys there. Please just reach out to me and chat to me then. And also, if you could like and subscribe, that'd be highly appreciated. Thank you guys so much for watching the live stream as well, and I hope you guys are doing well this weekend and have some lovely, nice weekend plans. Best Arsenal midfielder, I think for price, for value, I would say Martinelli for now. But independently, like if price wasn't an issue, I would say Saka still. Uh, will Isak even start all the games? I mean, he won't. But the thing about Isak is that he's putting such great statistics, even though he plays like 65 minutes a game. So Isak at 65 minutes is actually better than a lot of strikers for 90 minutes. Does that sort of make sense to you? That's why I think Isak is such a good option. Because if you look at any of the models, they've already reduced Isak's minutes to 65 minutes. But if you look at the gambling odds, right, for let's say goal scoring odds for Isak, they're extremely high. So even if you let's say did Isak's gambling odds times zero times let's say 65 over 90, you would actually still see that Isak has better goal scoring odds than some of the other strikers that he is competing with in FPL. That's what makes him such a, I guess, sexy option. Is KDB fit to start? I mean, he should be fit to start, but the question is like, is Pep even going to bother risking it? Because he probably still prioritizes kind of closing the deal, because you're still going to, Munchen, right? You're going to play Munich, and Munich away is still a very tough match. Maybe you'd prefer KDB rested there, so we'll see what happens. But I feel like KDB, there's a chance he can just get rested. He's fit, but it doesn't mean that he's going to play. Also, I just simply think that when you think about KDB in your team structure, like, wouldn't you just prefer Kane? Wouldn't you just prefer Haaland this week? Even Salah? I prefer all three of those options over KDB. I feel like one of the mistakes as well, coming back from the World Cup, was probably underrating Salah as well on my part in Game Week 17. But, let's not cry over spilt milk. Ehan says, hi, mate. Mac 10 to Grealish for a -4. I don't like that move. These are both assets that have good fixtures this week. I think Grealish obviously, understandably, has a better fixture, but McAllister is still a penalty taker for Brighton. If you look at the statistics that Brighton are putting out as a team, and also that McAllister is benefiting from a kind of purely individual underlying stats point of view, McAllister is a superior option. And they both double on Game Week 34. You're kind of capitulating your team for no reason. I feel like you need to transfer someone out for Grealish and keep McAllister in your team. And if you're one of those players who actually has triple Brighton midfield, then I'd highly consider going towards Ederson so that you can at least secure two City assets in your team. And then you might have to think about, someone like the Fernandes/Salah spot, and then you probably have someone like Rashford as well, plus Grealish. So that's kind of how I would lay my team out. So as I was kind of saying to people earlier on in the stream when they were asking about my plans to get Salah, right now, because Fernandes is playing DM so much, even though he's a penalty taker for United, I still think Fernandes to Salah out in Game Week 34 makes a lot of sense. If Martial finally builds match fitness and doesn't actually have his glass legs break, or his glass legs, sorry, then I could go Martial from Kane and then go Fernandes to Salah. That would still get me or two players that actually get a good kind of high ceiling for that game week, even though Martial probably will only play 100 minutes because I get Salah in return, as opposed to something like, let's say, going out of Grealish to Salah and then Kane to Vinicius, where Vinicius, I only envision him really getting 4 appearance points. Looking at the questions. Emil, how are you? Hope you're doing well. Thanks for joining the stream. March or Henry? I do have Raya, just so you know. I'd go March. As I think I like backing the upside of the Brighton attack. Hello, mate. Shall I start Estupinian or Burn? I'd probably start Estupinian. Start Chilwell, Botman, Estupinian. I'd start Estupinian. Because Estupinian for me is going to do well versus Chelsea. Sorry to any Chelsea fans as well. And I don't really like the upside of someone like a Botman compared to either Chilwell or Estupinian. Both of them have really good attacking edge. So I would pick the one with attacking edge, given that Newcastle don't have a superior matchup, right? Newcastle are still ultimately playing away from home versus Aston Villa, a very competent team right now. If we look at like the actual form of Aston Villa, particularly with Unai Emery in the team. So yeah, that's how I'd kind of envision it. Ethan Brown, should I sell McAllister or March for Grealish? I really don't like it. I know you've got 2 free transfers, and I would probably think about preparing yourself for City in a different way. Is there a way you can go for someone like Ederson? Is there a way you can go for someone like Trent? Is there a way you can go for someone like Salah? Those are probably options that I would prefer, because I feel like going from a Brighton mid to Grealish is like shooting yourself in the foot a little bit with your transfer. Blissett says, hey man, in a bit of a pickle, got a feeling Havertz returns against Brighton, but Brighton have such good XG away. Bench Havertz over March. Ooh. I'd play March over Havertz, yeah, 100%. I think it's okay to bench Havertz. There's nothing wrong with that. If you look at actually like Havertz's underlying statistics in the Bundesliga, he actually overperformed his XG, so his actual goal output was consistently overperforming his XG for 3 years. However, in the Premier League, Havertz has consistently underperformed his XG. So you can actually suggest that in the Premier League, Havertz has been a very unclinical striker. So yeah, I have to say I'd probably still back March. Whereas, for example, someone like March this season, who a lot of people think is a historically bad finisher, since he's actually moved towards his right wing role, he's matched his XG output. And so I feel like for that reason, you just go for March, because they have very, very similar expected goal involvement anyways. And yeah, as you say, Brighton is really, really good XG away from home. And look, this Chelsea team, particularly with Lampard, unfortunately, as the manager, who has shown to be quite an incompetent manager, at least from the attacking point of view, in terms of like developing his teams. If you look at, for example, the Everton statistics with XG, let's say with Lampard, and also like post Lampard with Sean Dyche, I mean, the Everton XG has flown up. So sadly, it kind of suggests that Lampard is a pretty poor manager when it comes to actually building an effective offense. And we know the Chelsea team were already struggling to finish chances. Now you're not even building chances, so I would go for March. Would you start Dunk or Botman? I'd start Dunk. Hello, mate. Shall I start Estupinian or Burn? Estupinian. Start Shaw. I would start Shaw over most players. As you can see, I've benched Shaw in my team, but a lot of people have options like Henry instead. And Rico Henry for me does pale in comparison to someone like Shaw, because I'm assuming that Shaw does like either starts or doesn't start. There's not going to be a world in my head where Shaw will come on as a super sub. I feel like that's a bit of a risk if he's not ready to play the game. Eze or Matoma this week as a transfer. Interesting. I'd probably go Eze actually. Why not go for a bit of a? But yeah, I'd go for Eze. But why not go for Olise or Olise? Sorry. Which defender to get rid of? Ake for Ake. Chilwell, Shaw, Henry, or Botman? I'd probably go from Chilwell. Save yourself some money. Botman has future double game weeks. Henry has better singles, I think, than Chilwell up until 35. So that's why I feel like if you can save more money in the immediate future, why not just do that? Bench McAllister or Watkins. Ooh, I'd probably bench McAllister. Oh, that's a tough question. I think they're so similar. Someone was actually marching Watkins earlier, and I said Watkins because Watkins at least has penalties, but now you're comparing 2 penalty takers. Maybe I'd bench Watkins. It's so close, though. It's like a 51-49 for me. I think I'd bench Watkins. Because the way I see it is you probably don't have a Chelsea defender. It probably feels nicer, right, to go McAllister where you don't have a Chelsea defense than, let's say, play Watkins versus your Trippier defense. Francisco, put a route map for future transfers or draft for free at 32. Okay, let's do a little bit of route map. Why not? Let's do that. Shall we go an FPL team? Or should I just kind of like do it on the fly for you guys? I mean, let's just do an FPL team. I haven't actually resized the tab, so all right, this is gonna be so this is Gameweek 31. This is my team. Okay, I have to actually change my team as well. So I took Chilwell out and I took Grealish out. Keep in mind, of course, that I actually saved some money in the bank because I went for Grealish before Madison had a second price fall, and before Grealish had a second price rise. So Chilwell, we're going for Mr. Oh, it might actually be bugged, wouldn't it? Because yeah, it's gonna show that I have negative money in the bank, but that's fine. Don't worry about it. Okay, so that's good. This is my team this week. I'm really not gonna do a free hit template this week. I think people can get injured. I'm not gonna do a free hit 32. I will be doing a free hit 32 video. I'm 100% slamming my free hit down. You can guarantee that. But let's move on. Game week 32 is a free hit. Game week 33. Right now, I feel like I'm rolling this week, right? Because what am I going to do? I'm going to play McAllister over... who am I going to play? Over Fernandes, 100%. The rest of the team plays itself. Might have to think about the captaincy. Still think it's going to be on Holland. I could go crazy and maybe just go for a captaincy on Mitoma. Again, why not? But the bench is laid out, I think, exactly as I want it. Probably actually play Steele over Kepa. And then game week 34, I think right now I've decided to go Salah from Bruno. And this is why I say like things will change, but this guy is probably coming into my team. Because I was previously thinking I would go Grealish or Rashford out, right? Into someone like Salah in the future. But the way I see it now is Rashford seems like he's going to be fit to play the two fixtures. So I like Rashford. Fernandes is playing DM still with Casemiro coming in. And of course, Fernandes still is on penalties, yada yada. But my transfer, if I went from Grealish to Rashford, would have to be Carlos Vinicius. And Carlos Vinicius seems like a 4-point Andy, right? In this week in double game week 34. So if let's say I didn't go for Martial, it would be 180 minutes of Carlos Vinicius doing absolutely nothing versus City and Liverpool, which I don't really like, especially if I'm taking Grealish or Rashford out. So why not keep Grealish and Rashford, take Fernandes out, which feels a little bit nicer. At least I can justify it because I'm saying he's going to Salah. I would keep the triple United structure by going for Martial. And Martial at least has some sort of attacking upside, right? He can assist, he can goal score, even if he's playing 15 minutes. I mean, if you watch, for example, let's say the City Derby game where they were getting absolutely destroyed and it was like 6-3, and United got like 2 consolation goals for no reason. I mean, Martial was like a huge part of that, and he's capable of doing that versus top defenses. And ultimately, it's still Aston Villa at home, Brighton away. We're not saying Brighton are like an elite defense; they're an elite offense, but still chances for United to do well. And I think Martial probably feels like a bit better of a transfer. I would have 1.9 million in the bank, which doesn't feel so good. But obviously, keep in mind I'd play Shaw over. I'd play Shaw over Botman, of course, and I'd obviously just play Salah over Watkins. Watkins would probably go second on my bench. Probably third on my bench, actually, because I actually quite rate Arsenal versus Chelsea. And then I'd probably just go Botman versus Southampton. Southampton, the worst team in the league, or second worst, depending on how you see Leicester. So that's good. That's my sort of mental mind map to 34. And then on 35, I mean, I haven't thought that far, if we're being honest. I think I might roll on 35. Another thing as well is if I don't go for Salah for whatever reason, I can always go Kane to Darwin, then go from Darwin to Kane. That could be something that you can do as well. If let's say you couldn't roll on 33, you could always just go Kane to Darwin this week. And then game week 36, I'm just going to slam a transfer down, like Watkins to Isak, basically. Because I feel like on 35, there's no pressing concerns for my team. So I like the idea of just going for Isak on 36. That's like my mental mind map of my transfers in the future. But let's actually quickly go back to some questions, because I know there's only 3 minutes left to the deadline. So let's go answer some questions. Trent or Robbo? Trent, 100%. Should I start Odegaard or McAllister? Sorry, this is to you, Hojak Borsman. I would definitely go McAllister. Just go for the penalty taker there. Jack Rick says he's gone for Martinelli over Grealish. Yeah, I agree with Martinelli over Grealish. I think it makes sense, particularly if you're not free hitting on 32. I like Grealish a bit more if you're on the 3 hit 32 trajectory, just because Game Week 31 is really good for both players, right? West Ham away is terrible, or terrific rather, for Martinelli, and terrific for Grealish with Leicester at home. But Game Week 33, I think City will probably decimate Arsenal. That's my opinion. I wouldn't say decimate, sorry. That's a little bit of an exaggeration. I think 2-0, 2-1, that sort of scoreline probably favors at least one Grealish goal involvement compared to Martinelli. As far as Botman or Ream, I would start Ream this week, just because you probably have Trippier. We need to talk about Willock. His stats are great, and he looks great every time he plays. I like the idea about going for Willock, but the issue is this, right? We all would prefer having Isak in our team. Our midfield is fantastic, right? We have doublers all in our team in Game Week 34. Everyone is going to have 10 fixtures in Game Week 34. So we don't really need to talk about Willock until Game Week 36, when they're probably going to double versus Brighton. So that's my counter argument to you talking about Willock. I'd say, for example, the Grealish position in my team could be Willock in the future, but for now it wouldn't be. And Watkins is also going to be a future transfer out for Isak, who I prefer over Willock, because Isak at least is on penalties and actually has better attacking numbers. And when you look at minutes, very comparable to Willock. Start Shaw or Chilwell? I'd start Shaw. -4 to get Haaland, Martinelli, and Ake for Havertz, Maddison, Chilwell. I actually really like those moves, Fionky. That's a really good -4. I would go for that. Hi again. Would you start Fernandes or March? I'd start Fernandes. I would just go with the penalty taker there. Trent or Robbo, I think I've answered that already. That's Trent. Ake, the best City defender. I think by virtue of him being the cheapest, and also probably being the most nailed. So a combination of both. So that's why I'd go for Ake. Rezul, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the donation. I really appreciate it. You supported me all season throughout the live stream, so thank you so much. I hope you're doing well, and I hope you have a lovely weekend. Really, really appreciate the donation. Thank you so much. Thank you. Is Robbo and Trent double up viable? I don't really like the double up. I think I'd rather go for like Trent and Konate. It costs too much money to hold Trent and Robertson in your team. Some of the City assets are cheaper. Some of the City midfielders are cheaper. These Brighton assets are cheaper. These are all players who double game week on 34. So I would not go for a double up with the Liverpool defense, because I think it's way too costly. And I still would like, for example, Salah in my team, as if I was to pick 2 Liverpool players. I'd rather actually go Alisson, ironically, than Robertson, because Alisson's cheaper, and I feel like Robertson could also get rotated. Keep in mind that I think Tsimikas is a better rotation option than someone like Joe Gomez for Trent. Absolutely lock your teams. I mean, you guys would have locked already. The deadline's over. I hope you guys had a fantastic little deadline stream. I tried to answer all the questions. Sorry about that, Finn. You said Chilwell to Trent, Kepa to Pickford. I wouldn't have done that, man, because going -4 for a keeper doesn't seem to make sense. I mean, starting Raya is better, no? -4 for Chilwell doesn't make sense unless the other transfer also makes sense. For example, I went Maddison to Grealish, which is independently a good move. I would never advise Chilwell to Trent through another transfer that just makes way for it. So I think both moves have to be good for the -4 to pay off in a single game week. And I think Maddison to Grealish is a huge upgrade, and Chilwell to Trent is also a huge upgrade. So the -4 sort of pays out through both transfers. In your situation where you're actually planning to start Raya over Pickford, I wouldn't have done that. Yeah. Well, good job anyways, Finn. And hope you guys have had a wonderful deadline stream. Thank you, Reza, once again for the donation. And yeah, I'll see you guys shortly. Looking to do more live streams in the future. Finally got a kind of like live stream template down, so I'm quite happy with that. -4, so I'll probably drop down to, let's say, 70, 80k in the world. Happy to start a little bit lower, just to hope for a good Trent massive super haul versus Leeds, and hoping that Grealish does well as well, and that, you know, one Arsenal is not going to bite me too hard, because I know a lot of people are going to play a lot of Arsenal, and a lot of Arsenal mid specifically. Focal raid. Oh, thank you so much, Focal. Hope you guys are doing well. Did Focal actually still go for the -4? I saw that Focal went for Trent -4. Ew, this guy has Haaland. Wow, you guys are all free hitting in 34 on with Focal, aren't you? Thank you so much for the raid, Oscar. Really appreciate it, and hope to see you in FPL meets as well this season, or this season end. What was Oscar's transfers this week? So I went for a -4 this week. I was pretty sick and tired of Maddison. I'm free hitting on 32, so I will be going Maddison to Grealish, of course, to sort of circumvent these double game weeks in 34, and then Chilwell to Trent was pretty logical. because I'm pretty sick and tired of Frank Lampard as well. So I've gone for Steele to start, but I think Kepa will probably come in because Steele seems like he's sick. So we'll see what happens there. Yeah, absolutely, fella. Nice to see you as well in the chat. Abhinav, you said you subbed out Odegaard for Martinelli. That makes sense. Nice to see a fellow Trent owner. Yeah, I mean, I think we all sort of went Trent close. I had the plan of going for Trent because it was something that appeared on review quite early on, and the EV loss for going Trent this week wasn't actually that much from just going out of Madison to Grealish. I also had the option of, I think, like I actually ran Rashford's X-Mins at 0 until the end of the season, and Madison was still a better transfer out. So I was like, yeah, I'm definitely going Madison to Grealish. Got enough money in the bank to go Chilwell to Trent, so I just did that as well. Did you go Martinelli? Oh, okay. That makes sense, yeah. Because you're free hitting on 34. I'm quite scared of Martinelli this week because it seems like a lot of people either went Grealish or Martinelli. And so I'm on that side where some people have gone Grealish, but then a lot of people would have just otherwise gone Martinelli, particularly with the price rises and falls. So it seems like a lot of people who wanted to go out of Rashford for whatever reason have also gone Martinelli. So that's quite scary. Steele, I think, was sick or rumored to be sick, but that's not confirmed. If you look at the press conference from De Zerbi yesterday, he mentions that there might be potential issues with the goalkeeper. So we're not really sure what's going on with Steele, but we might see Sanchez start today, which means that, of course, I'll have to see Kepa play, which is quite sad because I've gone triple Brighton, as you can see, or intended to do that. Am I American? I'm not actually, but I grew up in Hong Kong, so I kind of have like an international school accent. Will benching Chilwell backfire? I mean, if you sold Chilwell, there's nothing to backfire, right? So, free Hong Kong. Okay, let's get political here in the chat. Yeah, thank you so much, Oscar, for the raid, anyways. And yeah, so I'm from Hong Kong, but I'm half Spanish. So my mother's from Hong Kong, born and raised there, and my dad is from Spain, from Madrid. So I'm actually a Madridista. If that doesn't hurt some of you guys. What is up with YouTube recently? Your video wasn't 144p by default, so I had to select 180p. I'm not sure what that is. I think it's because you might have let YouTube automatically change your quality, but you can actually sort of hard preset that to a HD option if you want to do that. When did I leave Hong Kong? I actually left when I went to university. So 18 years old and 2018. So I've been in, actually 2015, sorry. Showing my age here because I've actually been in London for a while now. So I came to study in London at UCL to study law, and then I stayed since, and now I'm working in London. Let's get you to 100 likes. I really appreciate it. Thank you, John Hamilton. Otro de Madrid por aquí. Yeah, that's great. Any Atleti fans in the chat? Hong Kong food top. I think Hong Kong's nice because we also have a lot of Western cuisine as well, but also a huge influx of fusion cuisine as well, like a lot of Japanese cuisine, which is like a particular favorite of mine. How do London and Hong Kong differ / compare? Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think London's very similar because Hong Kong is quite an international city. I'd say the one thing about Hong Kong, it probably has much less diverse people in terms of like ethnic backgrounds. So you still see a lot of people coming from the UK. Right, people who are foreigners who probably stayed after who continued to stay after the handover from Hong Kong from, let's say, the UK to China. But we have a lot of people from England, but less so from, let's say, different countries. Whereas with London, you have a lot of people coming from different parts of Europe and even America, which is less so the case in Hong Kong. How many languages do I speak? So I speak Cantonese, I speak Spanish, and I speak English. So 3 technically, but I can speak a little bit of Mandarin. So let's say 3.5. What are my thoughts on Felix? I think Zhao is a very creative player, but I don't really like him as an FPL asset because I do agree to the assumptions that he is a bit of an underperformer when it comes to finishing. You can see the underlying stats. It does actually bear out that he's not very, very particularly good at finishing. I also think that he fills in a similar role to Havertz. So it's almost like you have 2 10s. / center forwards and no striker in the Chelsea system. Where's the best place to go in Japan as a video game nerd? I mean, there's nothing wrong with Tokyo, right? Because Tokyo has everything. So Tokyo, and oddly, actually, it's a bit of a taboo topic because not everyone in Japan actually loves video games, but you'll see plenty of arcades in different places in Tokyo, and there's obviously like districts in Tokyo as well where you can find a lot of video game nerds. I actually, funnily, have I don't know if you guys can see it, but I've got my Pokemon binder, my trading card binder, because I was looking at some of the cards that I had in Hong Kong, and I was looking at some of the Pokemon cards that I have, and I actually found out that some of my Pokemon trading cards are worth a bit of money. So I don't know if you can see here, but I've got a Mewtwo card here. Apologies about, but this Mewtwo card apparently is worth like 300 to £1,000. So I'm gonna try see if I can sell it one day. Um, Tokyo is your favorite city. I support Real Madrid as a club, but if you were to ask me a Premier League team that I love, I don't actually have one. I think I have a big affinity towards, ironically, Frank Lampard and that generation of Chelsea team, but I don't have much of an affinity towards Frank Lampard, the manager, sadly. Um, Sorry about that. And actually, I am rooting for Arsenal to win this year because one of my best friends is an Arsenal fan, and I mean he's been waiting well for Arsenal to do well in the Premier League, and they are doing this so well this season. So Arsenal doing well is something I'm down for. Who do you think is better to replace Lisandro Martinez with? I mean, are you asking after this week? Because obviously the deadline's over. So if you're starting from game week 32 and you don't have a free hit, I think there's nothing wrong with going an Arsenal defender next week, right? Because Southampton at home is going to be a really lovely fixture to go for an Arsenal defender. You've already missed the opportunity to go for Pedro Porro versus Bournemouth. So maybe you could also just simply go for, I mean, you could obviously go for a Liverpool defender this week. I mean, next week, sorry. So game week 32, if you for some reason have the ability to go to Trent, I think it makes sense. Um, Final Fantasy, Tales of Dragon Quest, more like that, and surprise video games is a taboo subject. It's interesting because in Japan, like not everyone loves manga, not everyone loves video games. There are some people who still find it to be a bit of a niche liking. So it's not like everywhere in Japan is outwardly loving of video games and anime and things like that. But of course, you still have like crazy super fans. I remember playing Pokemon Go in Japan, and this was many years after Pokemon Go completely died down. And I was sitting outside like a mall and looking at like a crowd of 15 to 20 people just huddled, and I was like, what are they doing? And then suddenly I just noticed that they're all playing Pokemon Go, like 3 to 4 years after Pokemon Go stopped being an interesting game, I guess, for most people. Because I remember, like, if you look at some of the viral videos, like in New York and in Madison Square Park and all these sorts of things, like there were people playing Pokemon Go, but it was like 3 to 4 years after that. And it was quite funny to see people still playing Pokemon Go. And I still actually have a Pokemon Go account, I believe. So I think I joined them for a raid. Um, yeah, I mean, Pokemon Go is tough if you live outside of a city, 100%. What do you do for a living? So I'm an accountant for a living. So I work 9 to 5, although technically not 9 to 5 because my hours are a little bit longer than that. But that's what I do for a living. Do I play football or any sports? Yeah, so usually I play five-a-sides actually on Saturday mornings. So the reason why you don't see me deadline streaming often is because I'm actually out playing in five-a-sides. But I did kind of injure my knee lately. So I have like a meniscus tear that I'm dealing with and just rehabbing as well. So looking to go back into the live streams and doing well, hopefully. What do you think of Haaland, Trippier, Rashford, Mitoma's prices will be next season? It's a tough one because I feel like it's Mitoma's probably going to be at least 7.5. Haaland could be 13 million. I think we could see those sorts of numbers for him. Rashford could be something like a Sterling price, like 10.5. I could see that happening. I'd be concerned about Arsenal as well. I think Arsenal, those assets will be so expensive. The question next season will be which of the mid-table teams will once again surprise us. So Brighton, of course, did this season, but we'll have to find some sort of budget flexibility through some other team. And hopefully it could be the issue, for example, with a team like Brentford is that all the chances really are focused around Tony. And if Tony stays, then there's not many options in the midfield. It'll be a tough one. What we also tend to see each season is someone like, for example, like Jesus. He's so well priced because he came from being a rotation option from City to being a really good flexible option for Arsenal, someone who's actually starting consistently at an 8.0 price. So hopefully we'll have one of those kind of transfers within the summer where we can say, okay, this person's transferred. He's going to have a lot more minutes and he's going to do well still for the new team that he's in. And hopefully he'll do well there. You injured your LCL and MCL. That is depressing. I'm sorry. I hope you're able to rehab or surgery is actually a good option for you. Saka maybe 9 mil. I think Saka could even be higher potentially. I mean, he's still a penalty taker at the end of the day. for Arsenal. It'll be scary to see the prices that Martinelli, Saka, and Odegaard will be in. How much do you make per month as an accountant in London? Are we saying like after tax, pre-tax? I'm happy to DM you the numbers, but I don't really want to put it in in public, to be honest. Not sure how my employer would like that. Henry, Fran, do you play La Liga Fantasy? I do not play La Liga Fantasy, but actually, hold me to this. I will play La Liga Fantasy with you next season, 100%. Do remind me before the season starts as well. Happy to do something special for Discord as well. Do you guys play any other fantasy games? Just curious. I mean, there are some that involve real life money. So feel free to let me know if you play something like Fan Team or even Sky Fantasy Football. But La Liga Fantasy, that's definitely something I'd probably play. The reason why I don't really do that is because I just love Real Madrid. So I have like an objective or a subjective bias towards them, and it's going to be hard to pick Barcelona assets as well. Serie A fantasy. A lot of my friends are actually playing Serie A fantasy, and they're doing incredibly well this season. I know there haven't been too many Serie A managers, but that's definitely something I'm looking at as well. How has it been owning, I guess, like Kvaratskhelia this season and Osimhen, and I think even there's been some great goalkeeping options as well. Interesting to see how Serie A turns out, because the Champions League this season they're doing fantastic, and we're probably going to have a Serie A finalist right in the Champions League this season. So that would be great. UCL Fantasy, you guys play? I'm looking to do UCL Fantasy content. I've actually got a friend of mine who is looking to kind of create a model for UCL Fantasy. So I actually also run a podcast on the side. It's on a YouTube channel called the FPL Script. And it's more looking at the analytical way of playing with FPL with models, but also just inviting guests to sort of give us some insight on how to play with analytics and how to play with models. If you're interested in that sort of topic, and he's going to be doing a kind of expected value or expected points generation of assets for the UCL Fantasy next season. So I don't know if you guys played the World Cup Fantasy, but Schadenfreude and 11ify were making a lot of expected points, or as I said, expected value models for the World Cup, and they were really, really helpful, because effectively what they're doing is just looking at different inputs, things like XG, things like XGI, home and away advantage, those sorts of things, and inputting that into creating a World Cup model. And that was quite interesting. So I'm looking forward to what he cooks up for UCL Fantasy, and I'll definitely make some content for UCL Fantasy next season too. That's the fun part. Permalock Benz X Vinny. Cry when it fails. You played NFL Fantasy for 20 years. Yeah, I think in America, you can see so many people playing fantasy all the time. It's actually quite lovely to see how into it, because even in America, you can see people getting so interested in collegiate sports, right? And even collegiate betting is such a big thing. There are some major collegiate betting scandals as well. Whereas, for example, if you look at, let's say, football, I guess outside of the championship, a lot of the second tier leagues outside of England aren't very popular at all, or even, let's say, amateur leagues. You switched off UCL Fantasy a few game weeks ago. Yeah, look, I'm guilty every season of pretty much forgetting to like lock in or change my team before a kind of group deadline, because my work as an accountant, I usually get really busy during the group stages, and I always forget because I'm working late on those weeks to change my team up during a weekday. So I always forget. Whereas with FPL, at least it's on a weekend and I can relax a bit just before thinking about my transfers. So that's the tough thing I struggled with UCL Fantasy, but I'll definitely hold myself to finishing that a UCL Fantasy season. Do you think the FPL points system / subsystem is outdated? Should it move towards UCL Fantasy model? It's an interesting one, because I feel like UCL Fantasy does change their rules quite often. I like the submodel in FPL because I feel like it rewards. I think it's a bit more aggressive, and I think it's less rewarding of people who, let's say, have a team of 15 consistent players, because it kind of invalidates something like the bench boost. But I guess the question is, is the bench boost chip any good? Is it actually that fun to play around? Because I feel like UCL fantasy is fun in that you probably will get more points each week and it's more enjoyable for someone who is heavily involved. But the issue as well is some people have counter argued that by saying it requires too much involvement. So you need to be active on multiple deadlines to play UCL fantasy well. And that's kind of where, the auto sub thing in FPL is nice, because even if you miss it, I guess you're rewarded in some sense. But then if you missed, let's say, a Tuesday deadline, then that would also ruin your Wednesday deadline for UCL and so on and so forth. So I feel like FPL is probably a happy medium where you don't have to be that active as an FPL player. Like I spend hundreds of hours each season looking at FPL, but does it actually really help me that much with my overall points at the end of the season? Maybe not. Some people actually argue that less time taken in FPL probably will help you make better decisions, or it doesn't have too much of an impact. But yeah, I mean, with UCL, you have to actually be very, very focused, and you have to play a lot and look at the deadlines, look at the lineups, and sort of build your transfer decisions based on that. But it's nice in the sense that you do have a more active team of 15 players as well, if you are active. So that's, I guess, the interesting point. Do you think AI analysis is the future with processing power increasing? So FPL Review, I believe, is actually trying to integrate AI into decision making within FPL, but he already does. I think we can. The FPL rules are easy enough to follow, where you can definitely make a model based on FPL point systems and how to score points effectively. So I feel like AI might not necessarily make better decisions in FPL, because football is one of the few sports where there's so much variance in it compared to, let's say, basketball. Because if you think about football, right, what actually influences the final result of an FPL match week for one fixture? It's probably 1 to 3 goals. Whereas with basketball, you basically have like 200 or 250 points scored every match, and you get a lot more consistency even from an individual player each week when they play a match. So that's why I feel like with AI, there's still going to be a huge luck factor that AI is not going to be able to circumvent. So I would say AI is probably going to be better in other sports than football first, because football has a little bit more variance to it, just naturally because the outcomes in football are dictated by much fewer events. If there were more actions like within a football match, then that could be a little bit easier to look at, and for an AI to sort of beat us in, because obviously AI has already started to overtake us in games like chess and so on and so forth. Thought you'd gone through enough pain of Trent. I mean, the pain's just getting started, Kanate. I'm happy to go with Trent. -4 for Trent as well, mind you. I suffered a lot by going for Trent. I mean, actually, Darwin has given me the most misery this season. Him and Foden. My Gameweek 13 transfers, I think, were the absolute worst this season. It dropped me from around 38k to 170k within one game week. So that minus 300% point red arrow, or minus 400 something red arrow was probably my worst transfer this season. It was actually against FPL Review, so I only have myself to blame for that. You feel like bench boost in FPL is more of a nuisance? I mean, I remember when Oscar last season played the bench boost in a single game week, and it popped off, right? Because he had I think he had Foster, who saved a penalty from Jesus. No, sorry, not from Jesus. He saved a penalty from, can't remember who took the penalty, but he saved a penalty, and then Ramsdale also kept a clean sheet, and it was a miraculous bench boost that actually got him to first in the world. But how often does that actually really happen? And this season, of course, a lot of people who bench boosted on 27 and 29 did well. Mostly 27 bench boosters because they had Gabriel in their team and he had 14 points. On 29, everyone seemingly did well in the bench boost, just because everyone actually at least got a clean sheet in one of the two fixtures, right, from the defender, and then all the midfielders at least hauled in one game, so that was perfect. But very often, actually, in previous FPL seasons, you'll see that the bench boost is actually a pretty terrible chip. So I agree with what you're saying. It's a nuisance. Like, you shouldn't spend that much of your transfers building around a bench boost, but this was a season where we got lucky, I suppose, with the bench boost, and we have to thank teams like Tottenham and teams like Leicester for losing the FA Cup and kind of creating this like artificially really, really good bench boost. But beyond that, I think, yeah, I agree, the bench boost is a bit of a nuisance, but we got lucky this season. Oh, that one season I bench boosted, yeah, let's not talk about that, Harry. Let's not talk about that. What position do I play when I play? I mean, I play five-side football, right? So I actually kind of just play like almost like right mid, but it's like center mid, effectively. But yeah, I mean, I don't really play as a striker. I don't think my finishing is particularly good. I have a good little finish on the far post on the right, but that's about it when I play on the right. And then defensively, I'm pretty lazy. So I think I put a good press on, but then in terms of actually lunging and actually extending tackles, I'm pretty shy when it comes to that. Any unpopular players you loved as a child? Interesting. I mean, I guess it's not really as a child, but I think Sergio Ramos is pretty unpopular, but I love him. um, I basically always love the person in the opposing team who's always like annoying you. So like, making dirty tackles, doing small little things like trying to draw a foul out of nowhere. So like even Luis Suarez, who played for Barcelona, I respect him a lot because he's like, if he played for my team, I'd absolutely love what he does. But when I watch him with Barcelona, like Jordi Alba as well, like absolutely hate him. But if he plays for Spain, the Spanish national team, I'm like, oh, I love Jordi Alba. So it's I always love. I don't want to use the slur word, but you know the word that I'm thinking of in my head. Anyone like that, I have quite an affinity towards because I always love those pressures. I feel like they always hopefully squeeze out 3 to 6 points for your team every season. Dodging red cards. Although Ramos obviously didn't do a very good job of that. But yeah, in terms of like tackling key players, etc., etc. So yeah, love Ramos. Pep has broken every single heart in FPL. I feel like everyone thinks that they understand Pep, when they get Pep Roulette right. But then it's like, you're still eventually going to get caught out by Pep Roulette. I mean, how many times have we been Pep Rouletted this season? Foden was on multiple mega hauls, then suddenly gets benched like 3 game weeks in a row, starting from game week 13. So some people might have been caught out there. Some people went Rico Lewis. Do you remember when he was like super fond of Rico Lewis, and then suddenly Rico Lewis just like doesn't even find his way towards the team? Cancelo as well. Even people who went for Ake, I feel like he was benched a few games as well, just out of rest. Trying to think about other options. Mahrez, I guess he did well during the double game weeks around double game week 22, 25, those sorts of areas, but then suddenly Mahrez got rotated out of the team. If you've managed to master Pep, I mean, you might as well be Pep Guardiola. Like, I don't think it's possible. You always have to react to Pep with hindsight because he always makes these tactical innovations and he will change his mind on players. And he does actually believe in something like form. It's not necessarily form in terms of goals and assists, but more like form in terms of how well you're playing for him in his system, in the system that he prefers. And he will change his system as well based on the selection that he has available. So this kind of like new 3 at the back formation with like Stones playing the midfield is so beautiful. But could you have seen it coming? Like probably not. I know the Premier League panel actually made some analysis like way deep into the past when the Akanji transfer was made, but you can't even tell when Pep is going to integrate that into his tactical lineup. Grealish looks like the obvious best City mid now. I agree. Yeah, I think the issue with KDB is like he's just directly competing with Salah, so that already makes going for KDB super hard. And I think Ederson's a fantastic keeper, so a lot of people going Raya to Ederson this week are going to do well. You stay awake at night knowing we got robbed of prime Ramos, Pepe, Casemiro triangle. Yeah, I mean that's like the prime triangle of like some of the dirtiest players who are trying their best not to get a red card every game. But I would absolutely have loved to watch it. And Pepe, of course, mellowed that down actually in his last few years with Madrid, and then has continued to stay elite even for Portugal particularly, but also Porto. And Casemiro still doing well with United, although getting red cards at United as opposed to Real Madrid. And then Ramos, of course, I mean, a legend. Get signed up for Gameweek 39. You mean like in terms of actually watching the game and actually just being a part of the crowd there? And JP, is that what you're suggesting? Foden probably worked out for me points-wise this season, but not for my mental health. No glitch for me. I'll never master Pep. Yeah, I get it. I know when, like, for example, I still look at Grealish at the Aston Villa season and think, wow, that was such a creative player, such a goal-scoring threat. Now when you watch Grealish, or at least, like, the first season version of Grealish, it was like this guy doing ball rolls to the edge of the box and then passing back to Cancelo or KDB. Like, I couldn't get my mind over how useless, like, Grealish felt like as a player. But recently, he's actually looked really good. And at least he's trying to take on more shots or be even the final man from a KDB ball and trying to actually attack the goalkeeper, or even at least capable of being actually dropping assists to Erling Haaland, which is like a huge plus, right? As long as you're actually able to play alongside Erling, I think that's fine. No idea why Ramos has been ignored by the Spanish national team. I feel like, yeah, it's a weird one because I think Luis de Fuente is very similar to Luis Enrique, so that's one of the issues, right? Where they seem like managers of similar minds. So given that Enrique took Ramos out of the national team, I don't think Ramos has been particularly bad for PSG this season. I think when I was watching the PSG versus Bayern Munich games, I thought Ramos actually looked and played quite well. But it's fine. You should play Gameweek 39. Yeah, I mean, I'd definitely look to play Gameweek 39 this season. I think you need to get an invite, though. I'm not really sure how it works, but we'll see. Did I choose Neto in Gameweek 1? Neto? No, I did not. I went for Bailey, actually, and didn't ignore the hype on Bailey, but it was terrible. So, yeah. Nacho's back, so you're not complaining. Yeah, that's fair enough. I love Nacho. Although, do you remember when we lost to, who did we lose to lately? That was pretty embarrassing. Scotland, when Scott McTominay scored 2 goals versus us. We weren't playing Nacho then, and I'll just blame it on the fact that we were rotating too much, and Laporte wasn't playing. What do you guys actually think about Laporte? Do you think he'll be going to another big club in the summer? Sorry, I just need some coffee because I'm absolutely down on energy from waking up for the deadline. A little bit lazy, but yeah, stayed up late last night trying to create a stream background. So, oh, you went Andreas. That makes sense. I mean, I think Andreas has actually panned out to be one of the best budget midfielders in FPL history. So, fantastic transfer. I just can't. Oh, Eric Garcia. Let's not talk about him, JP. I think he's terrible. I think Pau Torres is also terrible for the same reasons. He's not as short as Eric Garcia, but he is frail, very frail. Who's your favorite non-premium FPL season busting asset of all time? I haven't actually played FPL that much. I played FPL for 3 serious seasons because I actually played FPL 2 seasons before. So I technically started playing FPL in the 2020-21 season. That was my first season. And then technically this is my 3rd serious season. So before that, though, I had played FPL randomly for 2 years. Like one in a year where I got fired from my job. So I completely quit my FPL team. And then it ended up like as a dead team with 2.4 million rank. And then there was one season where I played the last 5 game weeks because my friend asked me to play it with him. And he put a bet down saying that I couldn't beat him. And I did. But I ended up 6.5 million because obviously I only played like, I think 7 game weeks or something like that. And yeah, but I've only been playing FPL for 3 seasons. It was like a 50k finish, 90k, 95k finish, and then this season, whatever happens, happens. Pau Torres is a bit of a fraud, 100%. Game Week 39 is like a friendly football game amongst like FPL managers and FPL players where I think they run a sort of charity football friendly match between people who are from the north and south of England. Whatever you actually understand north and south to be, because obviously people have different conceptions of that, and it's not really like a geographical thing. But yeah, so there are 2 XIs, people playing from the north team and the south team, and they just play and they do a match for charity. It gets live streamed on YouTube as well. I believe Focal, who you guys are all from, is playing within that match as part of one of the teams, and yeah, I think he's a midfielder as well. So looking forward to putting Focal in my team. But yeah, that's a charity match that they do, I think for one of the children charities within the UK. So a very, very notable cause, but also a friendly match where you can see your favorite FPL managers in real life play some football, as opposed to sort of make managerial decisions on FPL. Dallas and Lundstrom. Yeah, Dallas was actually a fantastic one. I mean, I don't have too much experience. Like I have to say, like Willock or Lingard, like 2 seasons ago felt like really, really nice to own. I wouldn't say they're necessarily budget players. Maybe Willock was, but obviously there were only spurts, right? And I owned Dallas for most of that season as well. So yeah, Dallas was a great sort of budget option. But I actually missed the Lundstrom season. But of course, I've seen some of Oscar's videos. I've seen some of the historical kind of FPL assets that a lot of people kind of hold an affinity towards. And of course, Lundstrom I think is probably top for most. Yeah, Neskeys, that's a good point there in terms of the Midlands. Not free hitting Game Week 32, instead free hitting Game Week 34. Yeah, I mean, I think Oscar's doing that, right? Free at 34. Fernandez to Salah is almost locked. By the way, if we can actually get us to 100 likes, I'd really appreciate that on the stream. So I know there's only 30 of you left and you probably already have liked the stream, but I'd really appreciate it. And a sub would also be highly appreciated. And thank you guys for staying so long. It's been nice actually to chat post deadline for a bit because I've got a rather calm weekend. Usually I'm actually planning to go immediately out with the wife, to some sort of weekend event to watch a movie or something like that. But able to kind of chill in and relax. Hopefully with a Trent clean sheet later today, but we'll see. Can't subscribe twice. Appreciate it, Caleb. Thank you for the first sub. I remember setting an FPL team off by posting an advert in a newspaper. That is crazy. Wow, so how long have you been playing FPL then? I wonder, has your style of playing FPL changed year on year? Because obviously now, I mean, we've gone from newspaper FPL to playing online. There are models now. I mean, there's a lot of analytics FC players. We've got so many interesting underlying stats in football. I mean, you must have seen all generations of like iterations of football changes in terms of statistics as well, and XG now being more prominent, things like that, expected goal involvement. Let's hope for an Ederson CS. I guess I could hope for it because I could get 1 point from Grealish if he gets a clean sheet. So yeah, I mean, why not? Let's get an Ederson clean sheet. But I'd be pretty jealous of people who actually own Ederson or Ake or Diaz if they actually play. So I'm not sure if I'm too fond of an Ederson clean sheet. But happy for you guys to get an Ederson clean sheet, as long as Trent can get a clean sheet as well, if you're happy with that. Late 90s / early 2000s, you want to say because Shearer retired? Yeah, I mean that's insane. That is a serious fantasy managerial history. Wow. Okay. FPL on TV. I mean, it's kind of coming full circle now, right? Because FPL is coming back to, things like Sky Sports, and you can see someone like Sonaldo and Prass on it. So props to them, of course. Should we do some score predictions for today's games? Very very ad hoc score predictions. Aston Villa versus Newcastle. I think that's probably 2-1 Newcastle. Southampton Crystal Palace. I'd probably say 0-2 Palace. Everton Fulham. I think that's gonna be 1-1. Tottenham Bournemouth. I'm hoping for 3-0. Hoping for some Kane involvements. Wolves Brentford's probably 1-2 Brentford. Like as in Brentford win. Chelsea Brighton. I think Chelsea probably lose like, I think 1-3. Man City Leicester could be a 5-0. West Ham Arsenal probably 4-1 to Arsenal. Nottingham United. I'd go 2-0 United. It's quite tough because I feel like without Rashford in the team, the goal scoring ceiling for United is pretty low. So 2-0 seems like that could be a bit generous, especially since Nottingham Forest are playing at home. And then Leeds Liverpool, I'm hoping it's something like, I was going to say 4-1, but that means that Trent's not going to get a clean sheet in Liverpool's favor. So let's just say, I'd probably say 2-0 is fair. But Leeds are fully capable of scoring. And the one thing that's interesting is actually since Marsh has left the team, Leeds have actually been struggling from creating chances and obviously conceding less chances. But you've actually seen more involvement from players, even though the underlying stats don't support that. So someone like Junior Firpo has been much more menacing on the offensive point of view. Even someone like Harrison, who wasn't really particularly favored by Marsh, is doing much better. And someone like Bamford, of course, he's been struggling with fitness all season. So him coming back into the team, being a permanent fixture, actually being able to finish for once, has been positive for Leeds. But we'll see how they continue under Javi Gracia, because I feel like he is a good appointment, at least compared to, let's say, not having a manager whatsoever. But they might have jumped the gun on Marsh, but it's hard to say because, of course, the results weren't going Marsh's way. It's very similar to the Potter situation. Some good predictions there, guys. 0-0 Villa Newcastle. Do you have a Villa defender, or do you actually really think that's going to happen? Because I feel like both those teams are fully capable of scoring. They've showed that they have been capable of scoring very easily lately. Isak Wilson, that sort of menace there. I mean, even between Watkins, Buendia, and even like McGinn, some involvements from him. Very, very strong team with Aston Villa. Gandhi says Villa Newcastle 0-0. Is that a Gandhi quote? You're 43, so yeah, but haven't played every year. Recently came back to it properly in the last few seasons, then switched off around 2010. Yeah, that makes sense. Is there any reason why you've come back to FPL recently? Is it maybe like falling out of love with football as well at times? Because I'm guilty of it as well. I think I stopped watching as much football during my years when I was in secondary school in Hong Kong, just because I mean football was always late at like early in the morning for someone like me who's living in Hong Kong, and so it was just hard to catch the games then. But then when I came back to, or when I came to the UK, sorry, for university, then I started to sort of refind my love for football because all the games are actually watchable within regular hours. So Yeah, Marvy says he's an Everton fan. They absolutely have to win this game. Yeah, I mean, it's a huge game. Unfortunately, of course, Fulham don't actually have Mitrovic as well. Not to mention, I think Everton actually have really good clean sheet odds for this fixture. So I wouldn't be surprised if you guys win this game. Pickford actually was a very sensible transfer. If let's say Kepa was confirmed out and Steele was confirmed out, I probably would have taken a -4 for Pickford. No Willock talk. I mean, black screen, I talked to you about Willock, didn't I? I said that basically everyone's going to have 5 midfielders that are double game week on 34. So I feel like finding our way towards Willock is very tough unless you do it after game week 34. So if you go to Willock on game week 36, then you could go for Willock then. I also talked about Willock as one of my favorite non-premium budget fantasy assets in previous seasons. So you might have missed that discussion. But I still think Isak is a preferable transfer because you need to go out of Watkins, right, on game week 36. So when Newcastle double versus Brighton, you probably want to have Isak in. And I already have double Newcastle defense. And I feel like with Willock, you're probably just looking to replace someone like Grealish then. So it's up to you with what you want to do with Willock. I think Willock's a perfectly good option, but his minutes are also quite low. So you're comparing, he's quite comparable to someone like an Isak who also doesn't have particularly high minutes because you could see options where maybe he gets rested and rotated during double game weeks and so on and so forth. Newcastle plays awful football and Villa knows that. They're likely going to let them hold the possession, try on the counter. I doubt Villa can score that way versus the Toon. Yeah, it makes sense. Premier League in Hong Kong is quite viewer friendly. La Liga is much more unwatchable. Yeah, I mean La Liga is super unwatchable, because La Liga. Well, actually, La Liga sometimes likes to put the games really late, which actually is actually viewer friendly for people in Asia. Because I think they used to try to cater towards like a Chinese audience, right, by having the games like extremely late in the day. But some of the fixtures in the Premier League, it just depends on what portion of the day it falls on. Because it could be nice to watch, it could be terrible to watch. Isak cap for Newcastle double, we will be there. 100%, I think so. Can you say a sentence with a Cockney accent? Look, let me practice my Cockney accent next week, and I'll come back next week with it, because I don't really want to embarrass myself this week. But I will think about that, and I'll come back. You predict a very uneventful match, max 7 shots. I'll probably come to the live stream next week with some sort of fixture ticker with probably my predictions, and we'll see how bad I do and get along with them. Got to go, Fran. Yeah, take care. I'll probably actually go as well. I mean, it's 11:40 now here in London, so I hope you guys have a wonderful week ahead. And Jesus is actually on my cheat sheet, black screen. I know you like the Willock propaganda. I'll think about Willock on the cheat sheet soon, but I think not so soon because, as I said, look, Brighton, City, United, all these assets, you're going to have 5 of them with double game weeks in the future. So Willock is not someone who's like a pressing transfer. He's a future transfer, and I can guarantee you he'll be on the cheat sheet after game week 34, but not until then. And then as far as Jesus, I mean, he's a green asset on my cheat sheet, so or yellow at least. But I definitely actually predicted him low-key to score versus Liverpool because I rose him in the week he played versus Liverpool. I was definitely expecting for him to do well, and I'm glad that he scored. But one of the issues with Jesus, of course, is that he's just slowly going to build up his match fitness. So he's only going to get better and better as an asset, which is actually beautiful. As far as Hojak, yeah, 100%. I mean, I wouldn't say Asian fans are the true fans of football, but I think the reality is that true fans of football can be found everywhere in the world, and that's a true statement from me. One thing that amazes me is live streamers never lose their voices and they talk way more than the average person would. I mean, I have to be honest, my voice is so coarse after a live stream. I don't notice it. And I notice now that, for example, people who do podcasts that are usually 1 hour to 1 hour, 30 minutes long, they actually do a lot of vocal training as well. And, maybe I just need to find some sort of opera singer to sort of coach me on how to keep my voice intact for the duration of a live stream. Because ultimately, I'm doing live streaming less than a regular live streamer would. Like people who live stream on Twitch, on YouTube on a daily basis. I mean, they're live streaming like 5 to 7 hours a day, and they need some serious vocal training there. So yeah, Jesus definitely green, awesome. Jesus free at 32 is a lock. I would love to go Jesus free. See, this is the voice kicking in. Free at 32. Kicking in. So he's definitely going to be in my team. You're an online English professor. We talk for 6 hours straight. usually in a voice that isn't your regular voice, you develop an immunity to losing your voice. That's actually pretty interesting. I would definitely probably need to spend some time, because I'm live streaming more often now and planning to do it more often, where I should practice or like, you know, not harming my vocal cords or whatever goes into that sort of process. All right, well, love you guys, and I hope you guys have a wonderful week ahead, and hope FPL is kind to you as well. So take care otherwise, and I'll see you guys next week.